was the Horsemen's real clout, if any, with the Crockett's? Did you have some? Maybe you were filling an important role. Was there a real position of power?
I think probably there was, but to answer your question, what kind of clout do we have? I don't know. I think Ric Flair had a very, very special relationship with Jimmy Crockett. And there were times, because one of the things that made the Horsemen so special was a lot of times when somebody has drawing power, has heat, however you want to describe it in the business, the first time if they're heels that they get beat, it kind of takes the luster off them, and they don't have that same impact when it comes to drawing. With us, we were getting our butts handed to us every night, and in pools of our own blood, and as long as we could get back on television, as long as we could tell our side of the story as to what happened and flash the championship belts and had those bragging rights, it was a magic formula that the fans would then get so mad at us that as bad as we got our butts kicked the week before, obviously it didn't sink in, and that obviously somebody's going to have to do it again. And that was an ongoing thing. Where I got caught in the middle sometimes was, and Rick would have the tendency maybe to be a little bit more outspoken. And I'm sure there was probably I don't want to say a clash of egos, because Dusty certainly had an ego, and Flair had an ego. That's part of the makeup when you're so successful at that level. But Flair would get really concerned that night after night, almost implying that Dusty was a glory hound, and that the more we gave him, the more he would want to take, and that we were constantly giving. And Flair was of the feeling that somehow this wasn't right. We got to put something back in the bank on our side. We're going to lose this momentum. It's just going to drop, and we won't get it back. And so I would be in the office in one capacity during the morning. I'd get to the arena, or sometimes it was on the plane, where I would then have to hear these concerns in our locker room on the other side of what they looked at as maybe lack of balance. And sometimes it would get pretty intense. And it wasn't the kind of thing that I would go to Dusty and say, Dusty was, we had a very, very, I don't want to say even unusual relationship. Dusty, I can't say anything but good to him. I was with him in Florida before I ever went there. A lot of my success is because of the opportunities that Dusty helped make sure I had, and I feel that I contributed to the package too, but it wasn't the kind of thing where I could close the door and sit down and have a conversation with Dusty about concerns. What I would do was wait for an opportunity to get Jimmy Crockett privately. And I'd say, Jimmy, you got a little problem that I think you should need to be aware of, and then you decide how you think it needs to be handled. And I would be able to tell him straight out, because it was his company. And if there was a problem that was kind of getting ready to maybe blow up, he needed to know about it. And I would just say to him, I said, Flair, it's really, I can feel it bubbling that he's thinking, that Dusty's a glory hound, he's taking it all, and we're going to kill us off. And Dusty's enjoying it on the other side, and it's not the kind of thing I can go to Dusty. And then Jimmy would just smile and say, thank you. And then Dusty had a little Mercedes convertible that he would drive around in, and Jimmy knew what buttons to push with Dusty, whether it was a gift or just something to stroke his ego. And on the other side of it, Flair would then invite Rick to come over the house and have dinner with Jimmy. And he would then give Flair that opportunity to kind of express these main things, but Jimmy didn't get blindsided about it because he already knew what the story was. So Flair got a chance to vent. Jimmy got a chance to assure him, well, I'll have to talk to Dusty. I see your point, And then he would have a way of saying to Dusty, Dusty, we need to do a little something for these guys. And I would only have to do that maybe every 6-9 months. And as the rain got longer and longer, maybe the frequency the window in between might narrow a little bit. But it was a very successful way that this problem was handled. And Flair never knew, Dusty never knew, and it was just between Jimmy and I.
Outside of the Flair and Dusty thing, were there ever times when other members of the Horsemen were unified in their agreement that something was wrong, a decision was wrong, and that you guys probably shouldn't do it that way or do it at all? Were you the one who would be sent to Jimmy to talk about it, or would it be something that Tully in the locker room would turn and say, you know, Jimmy, this isn't right? Or were you always kind of the representative?
To be honest with you, that didn't really happen. We were all, I like to think, consummate professionals. And so we would go out and we had a lot of input into what happened, what was said, how things unfolded. It was a different era. So there wasn't like somebody handed you a script and said, this is what you said. You just knew that you had bullet points, A, B, C, D, and that's where our individual personalities, our individual styles, delivery on interviews, filled in those gaps.